Nobody expected the bridal shower to end in blood, least of all Amelia. It was supposed to be the best night of her life, the last night she'd ever be a single woman. The hotel ballroom was dripping with fairy lights, champagne glasses were clinking every 5 seconds, and her bridesmaids had picked out a cake so big it looked like it needed its own zip code. Amelia laughed with her friends, danced badly on purpose, and tried her best to enjoy every second of it. Tomorrow, she was getting married. Tonight, she just wanted to have fun. All night, people had been pushing a glass into her hand. Her friends, her own sister. Just one. Amelia, come on, it's your last night as a single woman. She turned every single one down, same as she always did. Amelia simply didn't drink, never had, not at parties, not at holidays, not once in her life, and nothing about tonight was going to change that. It wasn't a big dramatic decision. It was just who she was. But somewhere in the middle of all that laughter, something strange crept in. Amelia suddenly felt tired. Not the normal, I danced too much kind of tired. A heavy, dizzy, my legs don't work kind of tired. She blinked hard, trying to shake it off, but the room kept tilting like a boat on rough water. That was the part that didn't make sense. She hadn't had anything to drink, not that night, not ever. So why did her body suddenly feel like it belonged to someone else? I just need to sit down for a second, she told her friends, laughing it off. Nobody thought much of it. Brides get tired. Weddings are exhausting. Everybody just assumed she needed a nap before the big day. The suite upstairs was hers. She'd booked and paid for it herself weeks ago, wanting somewhere quiet and private to get ready in before the wedding. So when one of her closest friends offered to walk her up, it wasn't anything more than that. Just a friend helping her get back to her own room to lie down. Come on, she said, gently taking Amelia's arm. Let's get you up to your room. Amelia let her walk her to the elevator, her legs barely cooperating, the hallway light smearing sideways in her vision. By the time they reached the door, she was frightened, really frightened, in a way she couldn't explain. Please, she said, gripping her friend's sleeve as she unlocked the door. Can you stay with me? Please, just for a bit. Something's wrong, I don't feel right. Hey, don't worry about it, her friend said, already stepping back toward the hallway, already half turned toward the sound of the music drifting up the stairwell. You're fine, just sleep it off. It's a party night, go on, get some rest. I'll check on you later. And then she was gone, and the door clicked shut, and Amelia was alone. Downstairs, the party carried on. Vanessa, her own sister, was still out on the dance floor, laughing, spinning with the other girls, completely unaware that anything was wrong. The music kept playing, the cake kept getting eaten, and nobody, not one single person, thought to worry. Hours passed. By 3 o'clock in the morning, the hotel was quiet. Guests were asleep. Hotel staff were doing their late night rounds, yawning, checking nothing was on fire. And then a scream tore through the hallway. It was the kind of scream that makes your whole body freeze before your feet even decide to run. Doors flew open. People stumbled out in slippers and pajamas, hearts pounding, chasing the sound straight to the bridal suite. Nobody heard the man leave. He was already gone by the time the scream tore through the hallway, slipping out before anyone even knew something was wrong. By the time doors flew open and people came stumbling into the hallway, there was no one to catch, no man to chase, just an empty hallway and a scream still hanging in the air. What they found inside the bridal suite would haunt that hotel for years. Amelia was on the floor, shaking, covered in blood. Nobody could immediately tell whose blood it was, but she was the only person in that room, so it didn't take long to guess. It was hers. As for the man, nobody in that hallway ever got a good look at him. He'd vanished long before they arrived, but Amelia had seen him, only her. Just a glimpse of his back as he slipped away, disappearing before she could even scream his name. So what happened in that room? Who was that man? And how does a bride go from cutting cake to lying in a pool of blood in the same night? To understand that, we have to rewind back to the beginning of everything that led to this moment. If you love stories like this, make sure to subscribe, and let's get into it. It started with a promise made in a hospital room. Amelia's mother died giving birth to her. In her final moments, weak and running out of time, she made her husband promise her one thing, that if he ever remarried, it had to be her best friend. Nobody else. She believed, with everything she had left in her, that her best friend was the only woman on earth who could raise her daughter as her own. But grief doesn't listen to promises. In the year after his wife's death, Amelia's father couldn't even look at his own daughter without falling apart. Somewhere in his mind, he twisted the loss into something he blamed her for his newborn daughter, who'd had no say in any of it. It got so bad that Amelia's mother's own family had to step in and take her, raising her themselves for that first year because her father simply couldn't. 2 years after his wife's death, he finally kept the promise made to him at that hospital bedside. He married her best friend. A year into that marriage, they had a daughter of their own. That daughter was Vanessa. And it was only then, once Vanessa was born, once the house had a new baby in it, that Amelia was finally brought back home. 2 little girls, raised side by side from that point on. One of them the daughter of a promise, the other the daughter born after it. And their stepmother kept that promise in a way that made people talk. She didn't just tolerate Amelia in her house, she loved her the way she loved Vanessa, fully, without division, without ever once making a difference between the child she'd birthed and the child she'd been asked to raise. People in the market used to stop her just to say that whatever she was doing with that girl, it was rare, it was real, that Amelia looked at her the same way any daughter looks at her own mother. Even the extended family on her husband's side, the ones who might have had every reason to whisper otherwise, said the same thing. She had done right by that child. So before the girls ever left for university, their mother sat them both down and made them promise her something. Nothing in this world, she told them, should ever be allowed to come between them. Not money, not men, not distance, not pride. Sisters first, always, no matter what life put in front of them. And they promised her, both of them, meaning every word of it at the time. Vanessa was the loud one, always had been, right from childhood. If she walked into a room, you knew it. She loved fashion, loved attention, loved the whole vibe of a party before she even understood what a party was. She talked fast, she talked a lot, she leapt before she looked. Patience was never her strong suit. Amelia was the opposite in almost every way. Quiet, careful, the kind of child who wanted a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C before she'd even commit to plan A. Where Vanessa moved on instinct, Amelia moved on calculation. It shouldn't have worked, 2 such different girls under one roof, and yet somehow it did. They were close, genuinely close. All the way through school and straight into university, where they shared a flat and, for a while, still shared everything else too. Then things changed. Their father had spent years working offshore, and the family had lived comfortably because of it, comfortably enough that nobody worried much about money. But eventually he lost that job, and the money that had quietly held everything together disappeared with it. It fell to their mother to keep things afloat as best she could. That loss hit the 2 girls in completely different ways. Vanessa, having grown up used to a certain kind of life, couldn't stand watching it slip away. She had no patience for waking up in a smaller world than the one she remembered, so she went looking for a way back into it, chasing the flashy life, the nights out, the men who could hand her back the version of living she felt she'd lost. She wasn't cruel about it, not at first. She just wanted things to feel the way they used to. Amelia went the other way entirely. She put her head down. She focused on school, then on work, on quietly building something stable with her own two hands instead of hoping somebody else would hand it to her. She was never particularly lucky with men. She didn't have wealthy admirers lining up the way Vanessa sometimes did, and honestly, she never expected to. That wasn't the world she was chasing. And still, despite everything, different mothers by blood, different temperaments, one loud and one quiet, one chasing men with money, and one avoiding romance altogether, the two of them held onto that promise. Nothing was supposed to come between them. Nothing was supposed to be strong enough. Neither of them knew that a man was about to walk into their lives and test that bond in a way neither of them would survive unchanged. William had been chasing Vanessa since the first semester of the previous year. It wasn't subtle and it wasn't quiet. He turned up wherever she turned up. He said hello every single time, even when she didn't say it back. And he'd made his intentions plain. Too, one afternoon on campus, he'd stopped her and said it straight to her face. He didn't want to just date her the way other guys dated girls, casually, without direction. He was serious. If she gave him a chance, he told her, he wasn't looking for something to pass the time. He wanted to marry her. Less than a year, he said, that's how long it would take before he made her his wife, and he would treat her well. He would do everything in his power to make sure she lived well, wanted for nothing, never had a single reason to regret it. Vanessa laughed in his face. To her, William was everything she didn't want in a man. His clothes were wrong. His shoes were wrong. He didn't carry himself like the kind of men she pictured herself with, and she never bothered to hide how she felt about it. She'd point him out to her girls and laugh. Does he really think I'm going to be with somebody like him? She'd say, shaking her head. Her friends laughed along with her. William somehow kept coming back anyway. Then, early in their final year, something changed. Gifts started appearing at her door. No note, no name, just left there, quietly, for her to find. Vanessa had no idea where any of it was coming from. She assumed, vaguely, that she had some secret admirer out there somewhere. She got that kind of attention often enough that it didn't strike her as strange. She had absolutely no idea it was William behind any of it. If anyone had told her, she'd have laughed even harder. Amelia, for her part, had heard Vanessa complain about the mystery gifts plenty of times, heard her mock them, laugh about them with her friends, wonder out loud who kept leaving this stuff at her door. But Amelia had never once seen the man behind it. She only knew there was someone out there somewhere trying and failing to get her sister's attention. Vanessa didn't want any of it in the end. She had her pride, and accepting gifts from someone she found so unimpressive felt beneath her. So she pushed the whole pile toward Amelia instead. Here, she said, take it. I'm not wearing any of this. It's not my taste. Cheap things aren't my thing. If you want it, it's yours. And Amelia needed it, if she was honest with herself. She was working 2 jobs just to stay afloat while finishing school. Their mother helped where she could. She'd always treated Amelia like her own, never made her feel like an afterthought, but Amelia still insisted on covering what she could of her own way, never wanting to lean too heavily on anyone. A watch, a few nice pieces of clothing, perfume that smelled like something from a shop she'd never normally walk into. She wasn't going to turn that down. So she took it, quietly, without making a thing of it. She had no idea, at the time, whose hands those gifts had actually come from. Then, one afternoon, leaving the estate where the two of them lived, Amelia came across a young man sitting near the gate, looking worn out like he'd walked a long way and didn't have the fare to go any other way. "Are you looking for somebody?" she asked. "I'm looking for Vanessa," he said. "I'm her sister," Amelia said. "What do you want with her?" He looked up at her properly then. He just wanted to talk to her, he said. He knew how she felt about him. Everyone knew how she felt about him, but he wanted the chance to say his piece just once and have her actually hear him out. That was all he was asking for. That's when he noticed the watch on Amelia's wrist and the clothes. His whole expression changed. Those were the gifts he'd bought for Vanessa. Amelia followed his gaze and understood immediately this was him. This was the man behind every single package that had shown up at their door with no name attached. "My sister gave these to me," she said carefully. William nodded slowly, quiet for a moment, taking that in the watch he'd saved weeks for, the clothes he could barely afford, worn now by a sister he'd never even met. Amelia noticed something in his face fall. He didn't look like the pushy, overconfident boy Vanessa and her friends laughed about behind his back. He just looked tired. Genuinely, quietly tired, the kind of tired that comes from caring about someone for a long time and getting nothing back for it. Feeling sorry for him, she offered to buy him lunch before they went their separate ways. He accepted. And over that meal, they had an actual conversation, no gifts, no gates, no Vanessa hanging over every sentence, just two people talking. Amelia paid the bill without turning it into a moment. By the end of the afternoon, they'd exchanged numbers. William hadn't asked for her number because he was interested in her, not even a little. In his mind, staying close to Vanessa's sister was simply a way of staying close to Vanessa, a door left open, in case she ever changed her mind. What started as the occasional text turned into daily conversations. William found himself genuinely admiring how hardworking and humble Amelia was, a refreshing change, if he was honest with himself. Amelia, meanwhile, found herself drawn to his kindness and the fact that he actually showed up again and again, consistently. He was always asking questions, always wanting to know more, where she was, what she was doing, when she'd be free. "Let me follow you," he'd say. "Let me walk you home. Are you home yet? Let me come by." On the surface, it looked like a man falling for a woman. In reality, he just wanted to stay close to her world, close to the house she shared with Vanessa, close to whatever thread might still lead him back to the sister he actually wanted. Amelia knew that, somewhere underneath it all, she wasn't blind to it. But she liked the experience of being around him anyway, the attention, the consistency, the way he showed up when he said he would. "This one's actually good," she found herself thinking, even while some quieter part of her understood exactly what was really pulling him in. Because no matter how hard she tried to keep a conversation on the two of them on her day, her week, anything at all, it always drifted back to the same place. What does she like? Is she seeing anyone? Has she ever mentioned me? Sometimes, he'd wait outside her workplace until her shift ended. Weeks turned into months. And somewhere in all those car rides and daily texts, despite everything she knew, Amelia fell in love. For the first time in her life, she felt genuinely seen, valued, safe, even if she also knew, quietly, that his eyes weren't really on her. Amelia knew the deeper truth too. Vanessa had zero interest in William and never had. She'd watched her sister brush him off more times than she could count. But she kept quiet, refusing to influence him one way or the other. Eventually, though, she couldn't keep her feelings bottled up anymore. She sat Vanessa down and asked, carefully, gently, whether it would be wrong to give William a chance, since Vanessa clearly wasn't interested. Vanessa laughed, not a polite little chuckle, a full, genuine, slightly offensive laugh. The idea of her settling for someone like him was apparently hilarious. She waved her hand dismissively and gave her full blessing, practically pushing Amelia toward him. "Go for it," she said. "I already turned him down in my head like 3 times. They both laughed about it. Just two sisters sharing a joke, certain that nothing, absolutely nothing could ever come between them. If love had a receipt, Amelia would have kept hers. Every sacrifice, every quiet act of support, every time she dug into her own near empty pocket to make sure William was okay, she never asked for any of it back. Not once. But that didn't mean it was easy. William and Amelia had stayed close even after graduation. He'd held on to his old apartment near the school since jobs weren't easy to come by and Lagos was a big, restless city to start over in from nothing. Amelia and Vanessa kept their own place too. It had turned out to be a genuinely good find, worth holding on to. Then their father died. It hit both girls hard in different ways. Their stepmother, the woman who had raised them both since they were small, the one who had kept a promise made to a dying woman all those years ago, packed up and moved to Lagos to be closer to her daughters. She was welcomed with open arms. She was, after all, the only mother either of them had ever really known. It was around this time that something happened that finally permanently ended whatever hope William still had of winning Vanessa over. He'd taken her out to a restaurant, one more attempt, hoping this time might land differently. But Vanessa didn't come alone. She brought her friends. The others piled up, drinks kept coming, and William watched the bill climb higher, knowing full well he didn't have enough to cover it. They knew it too, and they let it happen anyway. When the waitress came around asking who was settling the bill, Vanessa and her friends laughed and got up to leave a lesson dressed up as a joke. William was left there, humiliated, his phone taken as collateral until he could sort it out. He walked home that night with nothing to show for the evening except the sting of it. In the end, it was Amelia who quietly settled the debt with money she'd been carefully saving without making a single comment about it. Not long after, one of his friends said the thing nobody else had said out loud. "You're chasing gold that was never going to be yours," his friend told him. "Meanwhile, you've got somebody right here who's giving you everything. Why are you still looking somewhere else?" For the first time, William actually heard it. He stopped chasing Vanessa entirely and started properly dating Amelia, not as a placeholder, but as something real. Her mother wasn't happy about it. "What has this guy even done for you?" she asked Amelia one evening, and it wasn't really a question, it was an accusation dressed up as one. "From the very beginning, what have you done in that relationship except give and give and give? You paid his bills, you covered his rent, you bailed him out at that restaurant with your own savings. What has he ever put back into your life?" Then she looked at Vanessa. "Look at your sister. Look at what's happened to her life since she started seeing this new guy of hers. He's well-to-do. He bought her a car, a Toyota, brand new. Her whole life has changed because of him. And you're over here pouring yourself out for a man who can't even keep his own phone out of a restaurant's hands." And then came the part that cut deepest. The person you've been chasing all this time never wanted you first. He kept coming back for your sister. Again and again, she was his first choice, not you. Why won't you find somebody who chooses you from the beginning instead of somebody who only settled for you after everyone else said no? Why do you keep making yourself somebody's second option? Amelia, still hoping things might settle into something steadier, asked William to come and formally meet her mother. It did not go well. Her mother took one look at him, heard him out for exactly as long as her patience allowed, then poured a cup of water in his direction and all but chased him out of the house. And yet, despite all of it, they kept choosing each other. William kept promising her that things would get better. For a long stretch, eventually felt like it might never arrive. Amelia gave so much of herself to keep both their lives afloat that there were entire months she worked without taking a salary at all, quietly absorbing the shortfall so the bills still got paid. Then, after about a year and 6 months, something shifted. William landed a job, small, modest, a computer support role that paid barely enough to notice, but it was something. A door had opened for him, even if only a crack. He decided he'd waited long enough. It was time to make things official. The proposal was simple, no grand production. His best friend stood off to the side. A small handful of Amelia's own friends were there. She wasn't expecting it at all. He knelt down, and before she could fully process it, he'd asked her to marry him. She said yes. That evening, thrilled and a little overwhelmed, she posted it to her Instagram, a small page, a modest following. Her colleagues at work saw it and called her one by one, congratulating her, laughing about how they hadn't even known things were that serious. Then, somebody who actually knew jewelry looked closely at the photo. A post went up identifying the ring on her finger, pointing out exactly what it was worth. It wasn't a small number. Whoever this local girl was, the post said, she was wearing a ring that belonged in a completely different world than the one everyone assumed she lived in. By the time Amelia made it back from the small engagement gathering that evening, Vanessa and her mother were already deep into an argument about it in the sitting room. Vanessa had been scrolling through the same posts everyone else had been sharing, the ones breaking down the ring, the ones speculating about who this mystery man really was, the ones throwing around numbers that didn't sound real. She'd pulled the photo up and shoved it toward her mother. "Mama, look at this properly," she was saying. "This ring, the one everybody's talking about online, look at the setting, look at the stone. That's not just similar to what William gave Amelia. That's the same ring." "You're exaggerating," her mother snapped back. "A man like that does not own a ring worth millions. It's simply not possible. People online will say anything for attention. I'm telling you, I've looked at it 3 times now. And I'm telling you, you're letting your phone convince you of something that makes no sense. Since when do we believe everything strangers post on the internet?" They were still going back and forth, voices raised, the phone passing between them, when the front door opened and Amelia walked in, still glowing from the evening, still catching the ring in the light every so often, without quite meaning to right into the middle of it. Both of them stopped and turned to look at her at once. Amelia. Her mother's voice had gone strange, careful, almost hesitant, which wasn't like her at all. "Come here, let me see that ring properly." Amelia held out her hand, confused, still half smiling from the party. Her mother took her fingers and turned the ring toward the light, studying it the way you'd study something you were trying very hard not to believe. Vanessa held up her phone next to it, comparing the two images, the ring on Amelia's hand, the ring in the viral post, turning her phone this way and that like the angle might change the answer. "It's the same," Vanessa said quietly, not laughing now, not arguing now either, just quiet, in a way that didn't suit her at all. Nobody said anything for a moment. Then Amelia gently pulled her hand back. "It's not what you think," she said. "It's not worth millions. People online exaggerate things, that's all it is." But she didn't fully believe her own words, and everyone in that room could hear it. A few days after the engagement, William came to the house to pick Amelia up. They'd agreed on a small celebration, nothing extravagant, just the two of them out somewhere quiet to mark the occasion properly. He greeted her mother the way he always tried to, respectfully. Something about him seemed different that day, though nobody could quite say what. Amelia told her mother and Vanessa she'd be stepping out with William for a while, and the two of them walked out from the compound together. Her mother and Vanessa stood by the window, watching them go, peering out through the curtain the way people do when they're trying not to look like they're watching at all. At the bar, once they'd settled in, William reached for her hand and told her he needed her to hear something from him directly before she heard it from anyone else, twisted into something it wasn't. "I'm from a wealthy family," he said. "Not struggling, not poor. My family has real money, has had it for a long time." Amelia stared at him, waiting for the rest of it. He explained that his passion for computer science had always been genuine. That part, at least, had never been a performance. But going to that school, living the way he'd lived, presenting himself as someone with nothing, had been deliberate. He'd wanted to learn his craft, and somewhere in the middle of it, find someone who could actually see him, not his money, not his name, him. I disguised myself, he admitted, because I needed to know that whoever chose me was choosing me, not what I could give her. If people around me knew what I actually had, everyone would come flocking, girls, friends, all of it, and I'd never be able to tell who genuinely wanted me and who just wanted access to something else. I wanted to let people find that out for themselves, in their own time, without the money getting in the way first. He looked at her carefully. You never knew. You stayed anyway. You gave anyway, when you had every reason not to. That's how I knew. And then he clicked into place the ring. She finally understood why it had looked the way it did that night everyone gathered around Vanessa's phone. Why the numbers being thrown around online hadn't been some wild exaggeration after all. She hadn't fully believed it back then. Not really. She'd told her mother and Vanessa it was probably nothing, that people online liked to stretch the truth for attention, and some part of her had genuinely needed that to be true. It was easier to believe the whole thing was a mistake than to sit with what it meant if it wasn't. But sitting there across from him now, hearing it plainly from his own mouth, she understood the ring really was worth what everyone said. It hadn't been some coincidence, some look-alike piece, some cheap knockoff dressed up by internet speculation. It was exactly what it appeared to be, and so was he. She looked down at her hand, at the ring she'd been wearing for weeks without letting herself believe the truth about it. And for the first time, she let herself actually see it for what it was. Vanessa, though, couldn't let it go. She told herself she was only being careful, only looking out for her sister, the way sisters are supposed to. But late at night, lying awake in the dark, a different question kept surfacing, one she didn't like admitting to herself. What if she'd made a mistake? She'd laughed the day Amelia asked permission to date him. She'd waved her hand and said, "Go ahead," like she was tossing away something she'd never wanted in the first place. But a ring worth that much had a strange way of making a person go back and dig through what they'd thrown out just to make sure they hadn't missed anything. To Amelia's face, Vanessa smiled. She hugged her. She said all the right things. "Congratulations, I'm happy for you. You deserve this." But something behind her eyes had quietly shifted, and it never fully shifted back. And Amelia, still wrapped up in her own happiness, didn't notice it at all. With a wedding date now officially set and preparations moving forward in earnest, the mother made her move. One night, she called Amelia directly. She said she would not sit back and watch her own family tear itself apart over a man. She reminded Amelia that she was the one who was supposed to hold this family together, the one meant to talk sense into people and keep the peace, and that she would not allow any man at all, to come between the only people who truly belong to each other. Men leave, she said. Men come and go, but you and your sister, you only have each other. That never changes. That's what's supposed to last. And then she said it plainly. Amelia needed to give William up to Vanessa. He had wanted Vanessa first, her mother reminded her, long before Amelia had ever come into the picture. As far as she was concerned, that made Vanessa the rightful one, the one who deserved to end up with him, not Amelia. And if Amelia truly loved her sister, if she truly cared about peace in this family, she would do the right thing and step aside. That's what a good sister did for love. That's what kept a family whole. Amelia refused. She didn't shout. She didn't argue back and forth for an hour. She simply said no, calmly and firmly, and she held her ground. Her mother pushed. Amelia said no again. Her mother pushed harder. Amelia still said no. None of it changed anything. But envy, especially envy fed for weeks by someone who should have known better, is an extraordinarily convincing storyteller. One afternoon, it finally boiled over. Vanessa confronted Amelia, not calmly, not sadly, but in full fury, she accused her of deliberate betrayal, of knowingly taking a man who had wanted her first, of playing the humble, quiet sister while secretly building a life on something that had always belonged to Vanessa. Amelia stared at her, genuinely bewildered. "Vanessa," she said, I sat down with you and I asked your permission before I ever gave that man a second look. You laughed. You told me to go ahead. You said you'd already rejected him in your head 3 times. The argument was fierce and painful and final. A lifetime of being sisters ended in one ugly afternoon. They stopped speaking completely. Amelia threw herself into wedding preparations, surrounding herself with the love she had always worked for and always deserved. That same night, in the mother's house, Vanessa and her mother sat together and refused to let it go. They made a vow to each other that they would never allow Amelia to be happy in that marriage. If she wasn't willing to step aside and let Vanessa have what was supposedly always meant for her, then she would never know a single day of peace in it either. They swore it to one another, plainly, without flinching. Since they couldn't have her leave the man on her own, they would make certain, one way or another, that the man left her instead, or that whatever they built together never survived long enough to matter. That was the vow, and from that night on, everything that happened next was in service of it. So tell me, if you were Amelia, would you have walked away the moment your mother asked you to give up the man you loved? Or would you have stood your ground the way she did, even knowing what it might cost you? Drop your answer in the comments. I want to know what you would have done before part 2 drops, because what Vanessa and her mother do next is something nobody sees coming. Subscribe so you don't miss it. I'll see you there.